Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom on collaboration. So it's the DC Spotlight for the week of October 9th, 2024. Oh, so much to talk about. Kind of a last minute trip to LA Comic Con this last weekend, which was a bit of a debacle in a way. So many things I planned on doing, didn't get a chance to do, didn't go the way that I thought they would, but it was good to get out of the Phoenix heat. I will say that. Had some car issues, learned a lot about my electrical vehicle that I didn't know. So that there was that. Didn't get to go out to eat with Jeremy Adams like I planned on. So that kind of sucked. Didn't get to hang out with some friends I was supposed to really hang out with. So that wasn't the greatest either. But still was a good show. Still was fun to see a lot of people. And the other thing that happened and has been happening for the last few weeks is everybody's been but for longer than that. Basically, ever since San Diego. It's like San Diego's a giant show, SDCC. And sort of toward the end, halfway through, everybody's like, "Oh, are you going to be in New York? Are you going to be in New York? We want you to cover stuff in New York. Are you going to be in New York?" And I wasn't necessarily planning on going to New York Comic Con, but everybody's been asking every time I interview somebody for the last 2 months, "Hey, you're going to be there. We're having a party. We want to buy you dinner, blah, blah, blah." And so, yeah, turns out I am going to New York Comic Con. Again, very last minute. As of right now, I don't have a press pass. I have a badge, but I don't have a press badge, but I'm working on that. So one way or another, I will be inside, but unless I'm have an official press badge, I'm not on the press list. Although even if I get a press badge at this late date, um, a lot of the press emails have already gone out in terms of, "Hey, cover this, cover that, whatever." But I've been reaching out to the PR reps that I know directly, and I'll reach out to creators directly and what have you. And I'm sure I'll have plenty to cover. Maybe not as much as I would have had I been on the press list from the beginning, but that's okay. That just means I'm not obligated and will have more free time to just talk to creators and chat with people, whatever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Haven't been to New York Comic Con since 2018. So should be a good time.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I was there in 2019, but man, I'm so jealous of your schedule. Although you seem like a very busy man when it comes to the comic book industry.
Oh my God, I'm so busy. And that's the thing. Like I have all this footage from LA Comic Con that I still need to edit together and put
Yeah.
together and do my recap of that show. Cause again, it was a fun time. I got a lot of great video and some fantastic pictures and some good stories, whatever. But yeah, that's like probably 6 to 8 hours of work to put that all together so I can get it out so everybody can check it out. Um, just real briefly, I'd say, a show you don't need to go to for multiple days. You probably can get everything done in one day. Because certainly Friday seemed less well attended and there wasn't a lot of cosplay and the floor was kind of empty. Saturday was pretty busy the entire day. Sunday started out very slow, but it did get crowded later in the day. But not as many comic book dealers as I was expecting to see, and I would say it's definitely quality over quantity there. But in terms of just like if you're looking to go out and have a fun day with the family, interactive, a lot of stuff to look at, what have you. It's a great show for that. I mean, they had electronic bulls that you could bull ride for the kids, like for $5, not just kids, but adults as well. Horror activations, just, yeah, tons of great stuff. And a great lineup of creators were there as well. So,
Yeah.
well, that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the books for this week. Remember everybody that we are not talking about every single book in detail. Got my top five. Rocky's got his top five. But actually, when we looked at our top five this week, there was some overlap. But being that there's only like 8 books this week, we're kind of talking about all of them sort of in depth anyway. Continuing with the all-in age of DC Comics, which is pretty exciting, I got to say, in terms of the quality of these books. Although, other than I guess the Action Comics starting its first weekly installment here, and Batman, Absolute Batman, which obviously is the all in. The rest of the stuff is sort of out of the main continuity, so you don't necessarily get. I guess Green Lantern as well as the main continuity, but the rest of the stuff is sort of Elseworlds Tales or Black Label or what have you. So a little bit of a different feel, but we're going to kick it off talking about Batman Full Moon, which is one of those Black Label books. It's written by Rodney Barnes. Steven Subic handles the art. Russ Wooten on letters. Rodney Barnes, I believe he does Philadelphia, which is a very popular series at Image. And so this is basically him telling a Batman tale that has a lot to do with werewolves. So what are your thoughts on it? This was a book on Rocky's list. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
Yeah. Well, I was. You know what? Let's be blunt here. Batman Full Moon, Batman versus a werewolf. Right off the bat, it sounded a little tropey to me. It sounded like something that I probably wouldn't be on my list. But as a full credit to Rodney Barnes, I've heard a lot of good things about Philadelphia. I've only read the first two issues. I forget what I read. In fairness, I haven't read the first arc. I know I don't know. It's multiple arcs already of Philadelphia. I've heard only great things about it, so I really should go back to it. And I can understand why. First of all, the art here by Stefan Subek is fantastic. And this is I was surprised to discover, much to my delight, that this is a Batman and Zatanna story as well. And Constantine shows up in this first issue, and this feels like a Batman early in his career. He's actually the issue starts off showing shows the individual who turns into a werewolf in a very traditional fashion. A full moon comes out. There's this individual. His name's Christian Talbot. He turns into a werewolf, and it's ultimately discovered he was a soldier in Romania, and he was bitten by a lichen. It sounds very cliche and a little bit tropey, but it's tied up into some darker magic, and we're getting some good character work here by Rodney Barnes, because Zatanna shows up in a fantastic way, because Bruce Wayne has to break a date with Zatanna, and Zatanna scolds him by saying, she knows he's a superhero and a crime fighter like she is too, but breaking a date, I mean, she warned him that he was getting as bad as somebody else she knows, and that's Constantine. And I love that there's a little bit of a triangle here. I also love that the sexiness of Zatanna here, very, very different looking Zatanna. I quite like it. The character work here is great. I love Batman. I love the way that he's rendered here. Subek's art's fantastic. It's funny, we get there's a difference between the pages where they show this Christian Talbot character changing into the werewolf and brutalizing and killing innocent people. Those pages are in very darker and redder colors, and with very little dialogue. It just, the dialogue is sparse, and you want it to be, because it magnifies the visuals that really sort of pop off the page. And that is in stark contrast to the character work as it goes back, showing the reaction of city officials, the reaction of Gordon, of Batman, Zatanna, and their interactions with Constantine as they try to sort of piece together exactly what's going on. The Batman right away sees that these are victims, their rims are being ripped apart, and Batman's a man of science. This flies in the face of Zatanna, who's a little bit more open-minded to the possibility that there are forces beyond science that might be at play here. And there's really good character interplay in that regard by Rodney Barnes, and it really works. I felt pulled into the story. I like I don't like the way Constantine is drawn, quite frankly, by Subek, but I mean, that's the only nitpick. Beyond that, the visuals are fantastic. And I'm curious as to how there's a sense of tragedy to this Christian Talbot character who turns into a werewolf. He's very much is an innocent victim here who can't control his transformations, of course, because it happens with obviously a full moon. We get Dr. Kirk Langstrom in here. He plays a role as well. I thought this was really good. And, this is October. This is Halloween. If you're looking for a good gift to someone for Halloween, this doesn't have to be a Halloween comic, but it definitely has, it's well written. It's well paced. It pulls you in the first issue. And hey man, you got Zatanna and Constantine with Batman. It's an interesting sort of love triangle there, and it's to me it's worth checking out.
Yeah, it didn't really pull me in. The art is very moody for sure, and it's a little stylized. It's what we've come to expect from Steven Subek, which is fine. But for me, Zatanna needs to be very attractive, and she looks kind of like a soccer mom, to be honest. She doesn't look that bad on that page, but when we first see her, we see her from the back. She's sitting at a table, and then we see her in the next panel, and she's like standing up, and she's barefoot for some reason. but her feet look kind of weird, like they're
Yeah,
like she has claws for feet. Like I don't like. I guess it's just toenail polish, but yeah, she just that photo, that long middle panel there on the bottom. She just I don't know. Being that was my first view of the Steven Subic version of Zatanna, it was a little off putting to me. She just didn't
yes.
look
And
great, but
she's attracted to a guy that dresses up like a bat and a crazy would be mystic called John Constantine. Go figure.
yeah, so it felt a little weird, but the story, you're right. It has a lot of classic horror elements, but it did feel a little tropey to me, and there was nothing that stood out where I went, oh yeah, I have to read the next one. So yeah, just wasn't for me. All right, next up we have Action Comics number 1070, Phantoms Part One. It's the Phantom Zone story. It's going to come out weekly. Mark Waid is the writer. Clayton Henry is the artist, and it's fantastic that even though this is coming out weekly, so over the course of 3 months, we'll have 4 issues a month, and Clayton Henry's drawing them all. Now that is just awesome because they planned it out. It's not going to be one artist and then a different artist and then back to the previous artist, what have you. It's going to have a consistent look, which I love. The colors are by Matt Herms. Dave Sharp handles the letters. I thought it was fantastic. And when you talk about Superman in the hands of Mark Waid, he's finally doing Action Comics. It's about what you would expect in terms of a story. It feels instantly classic. Basically, what happens is these three criminals that have been exiled to the Phantom Zone are somehow fused together into one body that shares like this three head, like the heads are all kind of joined at the mouth or chin, if you will, and it looks really creepy visually, but it's very well done by Clayton Henry. It looks fantastic. But imagine how powerful they would be. They have the power level of Superman, but that's sort of tripled because there's three of them, and they have more than two arms because again there's three of them. So not only does Superman battle them, but also Supergirl, and they take the super team here to the limit. Superman and Supergirl, I don't want to say they get lucky, but they're only able to win because Jimmy's able to expose this triplicate Kryptonian to gold kryptonite, which takes away the power. So Superman talks about how the Phantom Zone has changed a lot over the years from when his father originally discovered it and he used it to imprison Kryptonian criminals. He wants to know what's going on. He realizes it's going to be dangerous to go there, but he even though they're criminals, in his mind they shouldn't be suffering. So he's going to go into the Phantom Zone to figure out what's going on. Again, it shows the compassion of Superman. And in a way, this issue is a little bit of setup because a lot of it is focused on that fight, which is epic and just takes place over hours and hours. I think both Mark Waid in the scripting and Clayton Henry in the art do a good job of showing how exhausted and prolonged this fight is for Superman and Supergirl. So yeah, there's a lot to like about this issue. I'm really curious to see where it goes from here. Ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Again, gorgeous art. Mark Waid on finally getting to write Superman is just awesome. So there's a backup story as well, but I'll give you a chance to give your thoughts on the main story.
Yeah, just a general comment about the Phantom Zone. If we just go back to metal, or even post-death metal and then future state and what have you, the way that the Phantom Zone has been portrayed in the comic books has been all over the place. We've gotten very little consistency. We've even got the existence of a so-called fan. I won't even go into it, but we've had an extreme amount of inconsistency with the Phantom Zone just in the last 5 years. And of course, if you add into that the full rich history of the DC history going back decades, the Phantom Zone has been betrayed in multiple ways. And you can't have a better writer script a Phantom Zone story than Mark Waid. And Superman is essentially, he speaks to that. He says there's so much mystery surrounding the Phantom Zone, so much he doesn't know how his father discovered it, and that he's got open questions about whether or not it's even an appropriate or whether it's a reasonable place to even have prisoners. Is it cruel and unjust punishment? There's so many moral and philosophical and ethical questions surrounding it, and then the makeup in terms of what the Phantom Zone really is. So this is a perfect story for that, exploring the zone. Superman's going into it to see what happened to these three criminals, because clearly, while they're criminals, it's so horrific what happens to them. Mark Waid did a good job of like sort of tugging at the heartstrings here, but also as a longtime reader, I appreciate what Superman is saying, because I too, as a longtime reader, I'm wondering what the hell is happening with the Phantom Zone, because we haven't got a lot of consistency lately, and hopefully Mark Waid can pull that in this DC All-In era for DC Comics.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because being that the multiverse is sort of closed off right now, we're only going to have stories set in the Elseworld or Absolute World and the main world. Maybe you need more stories set in places like the Phantom Zone if you want a little more variety. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the backup. Actually, before we do that, I do want to mention, going back to Batman Full Moon, I have conflicting release dates on that. So it may have been delayed. It might not be out till next week, everybody. So if you go into your comic shop tomorrow and you're like, hey, the guys talked about Batman Full Moon, where is it? It might not be shipping until next week. I'm seeing conflicting dates in our press package. It's set for the 9th, but I'm seeing some shops have it listed not coming out till next week. So anyway, just something to be aware of. Anyway, back to Action Comics. The backup is a Supergirl backup. It's written by Mariko Tamaki, art by Skylar Patridge, colors by Marisa Louise, letters by Becca Carey. Again, very much setup. Supergirl is basically being sent on a very top secret mission by Superman, but we don't know what the mission is. But it's so secret that Supergirl, when she gets a spaceship to travel in, she gets it from John Henry Irons, and then she somehow erases John Henry's memory. Later on, Power Girl tries to stop Supergirl. It seems like Power Girl might have some insight into how dangerous the mission might be. And there's a little bit of a tussle between the two. And Paige doesn't want Kara to leave. But again, Kara erases Power Girl's memory in order to leave. So yeah, really curious. A little bit of a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow vibe, with Supergirl being out there alone on a quest. So we'll have to see how it plays out. The Skylar Patridge art I thought was interesting. It's very good art, but it seemed like she was trying a little bit of a different take. It wasn't as clean as I've seen her work be before. It was a little more textured, which again, it may just be better suited for the type of story that's going to be told here. But yeah, a lot of setup. I really can't say much more than that because we got so little in terms of what the mission is, where the mission is going to take place. I mean, Supergirl basically says on a mission as dangerous and remote as this one, she's going to need all the luck that she can get, and all the prayers that she can get. So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. Anything to add?
Not much. It is all set up. It's a little bit frustrating. I mean, this is part one of a multiple story arc. It's part one of aptly called "Where Are You Going?" Well, yeah, we're asking Supergirl, "Where are you going?" And literally just repeated meetings between Supergirl and other characters where she just mind wipes them and then eventually leaves Earth, and we still don't know where she's going. I have to admit, I'm a little bit frustrated, especially when these types of pages just add to the price point of the comic book. I wish it would have been done in a more, I think more substance could have been placed in it. But again, it's a decompressed way of sort of trying to get our, whet the appetite in terms of what's going on. And it worked. I'm asking the question, but it could have been asked with one page or two. But that's me being a little bit nitpicky.
Yeah, so let's move on. Batman and Robin number 14 is up next. Again, first of the all-in issues for this. Philip Kennedy Johnson is taking over as the writer. Javi Fernandez on art. Marcelo Maiello on colors. Steve Wands on letters. The art's okay by Javi Fernandez. Not my favorite, and I don't even know if it's necessarily the line work. Maybe it's the color work by Marcelo Maiello. And I don't know if he was just trying to kind of play into the type of color work that we saw previously on this book with Simone DeMeo, because the tones are similar, even though the style of coloring is very, very different. But it's not like those bright primary colors that I typically like on a book like this. So But again, maybe Marcelo Maiolo just felt that the line work from Javi Fernandez suited this type of color work a little more. But be that as it may, where this book really focuses is on the relationship between Damian and Bruce. But it's a little bit, I don't want to say jarring, but it's definitely a shift in tone from the relationship that we had with Bruce and Damian when Joshua Williamson was on the book. We really, both of us really talked about how that was a focus for Williamson and how it worked really well in terms of showing them getting along better. This is a little bit of a return to the brattier Damian Wayne, and I can't say that I'm really a fan of it. Damian has to go to a fundraiser, and he sort of grumbles and complains the whole time, which I suppose is not completely out of character for somebody his age. But I did feel like we were a little bit like we had moved past this, like Damien had matured past this. Um, I know Philip Kennedy Johnson is a fantastic writer. I'm sure that there'll be some ups and downs with the relationship between Bruce and Damien, as there should be. But I just in terms of if you've been reading it all along and now it shifts to a different writer, it's a sort of an abrupt change for their relationship. All that being said, like set aside that nitpick, the actual story here, we're being introduced to a new villain named Memento. It seems interesting. He seems to have a very ancient origin, which seems interesting, and may have ties to um, the Wayne family in the past in Gotham City. But it doesn't feel like it's going to be a situation where it feels like it's a retcon that doesn't make sense. Sort of like we got with the Orgum family or the Court of Owls, to go way back to the New 52, where it's like these people have been around forever, supposedly, the Orgums and the Court of Owls, and yet we've never heard of them, and yet Batman's the world's greatest detective, and they operated in secret for how many years? That doesn't make sense. Whereas what's going on here, it's been a situation where it seems like this character was a part of Gotham's history way back, but has been, I don't want to say dormant, but like in a state of suspended animation or what have you for a long period of time. So it would make sense that Bruce wasn't aware. Or maybe he does have knowledge, but knows that the guy hasn't been operating recently because the guy hasn't been operating recently. So a lot more to learn about Memento. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But yeah, I have a little bit of mixed feelings on this one just because of that Bruce Damian dynamic. It really shifted here. And I didn't care for this bratty Damian. Not a bratty Damian in the way that he was a jerk when he first showed up, and I disliked him. This is more like a whiny Damian, which just very different take on him. So um, yeah, yeah, it was I don't know. It felt a little off to me. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I agree that it's a little off if we're comparing it to Williamson's Damien. I'm prepared to cut PKJ some slack here, if for no other reason that I really liked his. It is PKJ the writer, right? Yeah, because I really enjoyed his characterization in Green Lantern War Journal, and the thing is, with DC, with all these teenage heroes, they're always okay, are they 14, 15, 16, or 17 years of age, depending on which number you pick. You can script them as maybe being a little bit more mature or less mature, and it's sort of all over the board as it is. So I actually enjoyed the characterization, or I actually enjoyed Damien's interaction with the other girl at the fundraiser. I thought it was good. I actually really enjoyed the art. I'm really curious who this Memento actually is, how it ties in with some sort of industrial accident and labor accident that happened in 1892 in Gotham. So PKJ sort of setting up a history here in his own way, and it's easy to follow. It's not complicated, which sometimes I have a hard time finding PKJs when he gets too deep into the weeds. But I thought this was a pretty good start to DC All In for Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where it goes in terms of Memento as well. Seems like a very interesting villain, so we'll have to see. All right, up next we have the Green Lantern Civil Corps Special #1, written by Jeremy Adams and the aforementioned Philip Kennedy Johnson. We've got art by Salvador LaRocca, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Dave Sharp. Um, interesting that they decided to do a special. Obviously, the Green Lantern War Journal series that PKJ was doing is over. Green Lantern series by Jeremy Adams continues. Um, so I'm not sure why they chose to do this. It is a little bit larger. It's I think 36 pages, a little bit larger. So yeah, I'm not sure why they decided um, to do this in a special, maybe just to emphasize um, the importance of it in this call to war. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think I don't know. I'm still. You make a point about the title itself, or at least I will, the Civil Core title. I'm not sure exactly why they're calling it the Civil Core. I still don't get that even reading the issue. I'm not sure why they're calling it a Civil Core special. All I know is that this could just be another issue of Green Lantern. This could be the next issue of Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern. This one happens to be written by PKJ. It's nice to see John Stewart enter the fray, particularly because now he's got two rings. He's got the Green Lantern ring, and he's got the what does he call it? The dark. What is he? What's the name of John Stewart's other ring?
I can't
I
remember.
can't.
They name it in here.
Yeah,
He
I'm
talks
drawing the
about not.
blank.
Yeah, he talks
Uh,
about not wanting to use it. Dark Star ring.
Yeah, the Dark Star ring or whatever it is, and it's basically a fancy way to try to get that ring. Now we know why that the purpose of that Green Lantern War Journal, that story, all that stuff that John Stewart went through to get that Dark Star ring or that dark ring of the Fen or whatever it was, only to have it end up with Lord Varan of the United Planets, and so. Yeah, this basically unites all the lanterns, and it's kind of cool. It's nice to see Lantern Shepherd interact with interact with Guy Gardner, John Stewart, uh, and of course we even see Jade Stone from the Absolute Power series, and everything's coming into fray. We even get Alan Scott. We've got all of them sort of reciting the Green Lantern oath. It's pretty cool. Green Lantern, Alan Scott, Green Lantern enters the fourth dimension and enters is going to be battling the unseen. The unseen who are sort of monitoring and working alongside Lord Varan with his machinations to try to essentially take control of all the planets. All the planets within the United Planets. I think it does it. I think it's pretty good. It's again, it's just another chapter of showing how. Of what I think one of the things that's been the more interesting aspects of the DC stories for the last 6 months to a year has been Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run and PKJ on War Journal. And I think this just continues that. And it's really nice to see that what Jeremy Adams and PKJ said over a year ago in their interviews is that, yeah, they're all moving toward the same endpoint and we're finally here. And it's pretty cool. It's nice to see it come together in this Civil Core special. And I think it works. It's and we're getting to see all the characters of the various emotional spectrums coming into play, and I quite enjoyed the fate of Lord Varan here, and Lord Theros, and also to see Mogo at the end. I don't quite understand what happened at the end here. Mogo potentially being a Red Lantern, which seems a giant red fireball. That's quite interesting, but a lot happens in this. If you're a Green Lantern fan, you definitely want to pick up Civil Core Special. You definitely do, because I think this is sort of setting the tone moving forward. And clearly, the Green Lanterns have a new threat with Lord Theros having that Dark Star ring.
Well, do they or don't they? I mean, that's the thing. It's as far as it being called a Civil Core special. Obviously the play on Civil War. Well, how can it be a Civil War? The Lanterns are all on the same side. Well, except not really, right? Because we know that Lord Premier Theros has the ability, and we're not exactly sure how. Some link with the Dark Star of the Fen, and the ability to give lanterns, and we see Mogo here, as you mentioned, as a Red Lantern. We see Kilowog as a Yellow Lantern. The ability to force previous lanterns that have been heroes into a certain emotional spectrum and in a way brainwash them and get them to work for him. So it is lanterns fighting lanterns, in that way. So I think that's where the whole idea and concept of a civil war comes in. But what's interesting is I believe we see the death, as much as anybody really dies in comics, of Premier Theros here, and his sort of as his last ditch effort is when he calls Mogo um, to come to Thanagar, right? Is that, yeah, that's where they are. Um,
Yeah.
and Mogo's going to be devouring the planet. Um, and that's what we're told. The war wages on. The Green Lantern lives again. A planet eats another planet. Civil War continues in Green Lantern 16. So yeah, a lot of cool ideas here. Just when you think the lanterns have saved the day because Lord Premier Theros has been killed, maybe that's not the case. We also see who I believe is Varen, who was one of those lanterns that I mentioned, because Lord Premier Theros, when he was in charge of the United Planets, he replaced all the ambassadors from the other member planets with Durlans, so they could shapeshift. All those Durlans were also brainwashed and under his control. So it's basically him controlling everything. Him as this sort of power mad despot, with dreams of ruling the galaxy. Um, and he did have somewhat of an agreement with the Dark Star of the Fen. He was working in concert with them as well. And we know Varen was one of those Green Lanterns that was didn't seem to need to be brainwashed. To be honest, it seemed like he was willing to do the dirty work of Lord Premier Theros and didn't need to go. It wasn't against his nature to be doing these awful things. Um, but we know he got killed in the Green Lantern War Journal, John Stewart series, and kind of leaned into this whole idea of the Fen. And so, yeah, he shows up here, and it becomes clear to Theros that maybe he sided with the Dark Star of the Fen to his detriment. It seems like Theros, despite him wearing that ring temporarily, does die at the end of this issue, with his last act being to call the planet Mogo. He says, "I am undone, but if I die, let me have my revenge, my rage, my revenge." And that's when we see Mogo as the red planet. So yeah, it seems like kind of a last desperate act. So what is there to clean up from this? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the unseen, these lanterns, these very powerful, like almost mystic lanterns that were Theros's um, like failsafe, if you will, in terms of them being able to sort of predict the future and being very powerful and what have you. Um, and the only reason that they're not able to stop Hal Jordan and the rest of the Green Lanterns that go to Thanagar is because, as you mentioned, Alan Scott is sent as a distraction, because Alan Scott's his Green Lantern and ring don't work quite the same as the rings that are connected to the power battery that previously was on Oa, and in this case, they're charged from the backup battery on Earth. Because his is all about the star heart, and the hints of how important Alan Scott is, and how powerful he is, and how different his powers work, I think is really intriguing. Because as much as this character has been around since the Golden Age, and at various times he's been used more than others, I still think he's an underutilized character. I really think there's a lot more that can be done with Alan Scott. Um, and obviously, we had the recent Green Lantern Alan Scott series from Tim Sheridan, which was fantastic, but that was based in the past, and sort of fleshing out his origin. I would love to have him take a more prominent role going forward, but I guess we'll see. I don't know how much he's going to show up in Jeff Lemire's JSA run, but yeah, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But this was a fantastic issue. I loved it. There was a ton of action. It really moved the story forward. Um, it and maybe I feel like it moved the story forward so much because the past 2 or 3 issues of Green Lantern have been absolute power tie-ins. So the story that Jeremy Adams has been crafting, it feels like, yeah, it was moving forward, but very slowly. And maybe that was the whole reason they did this. They did this special. It's like we haven't gotten a lot of movement on the Lord Premier Theros storyline, for lack of a better thing to call it. So this allowed us to get a big chunk of that story. So yeah, I thought it was really great. And the art by Rafa Sandoval, or not Rafa Sandoval, but Salvador LaRocca is fantastic as well. Um, we know Star Sapphire is going to be a big player in the Justice League Unlimited. So to see her sort of embracing her role as a hero here, coming out and saying it out loud is great as well. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Next book we're going to talk about, probably the most anticipated book this week, Absolute Batman, finally here, written by Scott Snyder, art by Nick Dragotta. I don't have the rest of the creative team for some reason. Let's see if I can find it. But it's called The 200, part 1 of 5, which I find that to be interesting. I haven't seen Scott Snyder say anything about why is it called the 200.
Isn't that zoo? I thought that's the zoo.
Is it the zoo?
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. Maybe you're right. I just assumed it was the zoo because the zoo had a role in the story. But you might, maybe I'm wrong.
You know what? No, no. I think you're right. Yeah, that makes more sense. That makes way more sense that it's called the zoo. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was totally on me. Yeah. Because I was thinking, 100 bullets, 300 Miller, whatever. Yeah, but no, that makes sense because we get I don't want to say the origin, but the inciting factor. Everybody knows it's been done to death, and I will say, thank God there are no damn pearls. If this is a new, version of Batman, pearls aren't going to factor into his origin. But again, written by Scott Snyder, art by Nick Dragotta. Frank Martin does the colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. So many differences between this Batman and the main universe Batman. And we can start with that origin. Instead of it taking place in Crime Alley, which I imagine there's going to be some debate, right? The whole idea of, okay, the Wayne family went to see a movie. They went to see Zorro. They took a shortcut through an alley to get back to, wherever they were going. Joe Chill shows up, asks for the pearls, asks for the wallet. There's an altercation. Joe Chill kills Bruce Wayne's parents. Again, classic in Frank Miller's Batman Year One. The pearls falling, Bruce kneeling there, tears streaming down his face. Jim Gordon shows up, comforts him. He declares, war on criminals, travels the world, blah, blah. Like we know the origin, right? In this one, it's a different situation. It's more of a, okay, guns are a problem. There's for lack of a better term, a mass shooting, and it takes place at the Gotham City Zoo. This is not a Batman who grew up privileged. This is not a Thomas Wayne who, came from money and has all sorts of gadgets at his disposal because of the resources of his family. Thomas Wayne is a teacher, and he's got his class on a field trip to the zoo when this guy shows up and Thomas, trying to protect his students, is killed. Martha Wayne is not even there. So there could be no pearls. She probably didn't even own pearls because, again, they weren't well off. And she is actually still alive. So it's a situation where this version of Bruce Wayne didn't grow up privileged, didn't grow up. In fact, he grew up with Crime Alley. A lot of his friends are people that, you're going to see the name and you're going to go, wait, how is his friend? Like one of his best friends, he trains at his gym, is Waylon Jones. And if you're going, well, who's Waylon Jones? That's Killer Croc. Waylon Jones becomes Killer Croc. And the place where Bruce Wayne is working out is called Croc's Gym. So it's this idea that everything's turned on its head. And Scott Snyder's talked about this. If you can think of, the main universe Batman as sort of working outside the system, but his origins are from within, quote unquote, the system. This Bruce Wayne is on the other side. He's not part of the establishment. He grew up, for lack of a better term, in Crime Alley. He's an engineer. He's a very smart guy. Went to school for engineering, and he's built his own costume, what have you, but he doesn't have those same types of resources. Our POV character for the story is Alfred, who looks to be like some sort of a secret agent working for this clandestine organization. And he's going to meet Bruce Wayne, and they're going to have sort of a different philosophical viewpoints. And that's going to be interesting as well. So loved Alfred, loved his look, loved this Bruce Wayne, and how I know some people are like, he shouldn't be as big as he is, man. I think it looks great. The symbol on his chest that everybody's been, or a lot of people have been complaining about, why is it so big? It's actually, like a piece of armor that helps protect his heart. But he also can detach it from the suit and turns it into like kind of this weapon. tons of action. Black Mask is the villain. There's so much packed into this first issue that it's hard without doing a deep dive and going page by page to really talk about everything that happens. But it is clear that this is an underdog Bruce Wayne that has taken it upon himself to make Gotham a better place because of the trauma of losing his father, but doesn't seem to be as inherently broken in a way as the Bruce Wayne that we know, because again, he had the influence of his mother. Um, but there is a sense of chaos to him, and a sense of youth and a sense of inexperience, and maybe more than anything, a sense of anger. That might be the one thing that he most has in common with the Batman from the main universe, this anger at having lost his father in this case, and the anger that Bruce Wayne in the main universe carries for losing both his parents. The only thing that I didn't like, and it's going to be to be determined how big of a I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a nitpick. I think it's a little more than a nitpick, but we'll see. Jason Aaron has talked a lot about taking his time with Absolute Superman to get to the characters that we know, wants to kind of focus on the changes and how things are different and what have you. We know who knows when Lex Luthor will show up. There's no Fortress of Solitude. The first issue of Absolute Superman starts in Brazil. There's no Smallville. There's no Metropolis. No Lex Luthor, as I said, Lois Lane, Daily Planet. None of that stuff. Batman is still in Gotham City, which, I mean, the argument could be made that the location of Gotham City to Batman is a little bit more integral to the character than Metropolis is to Superman. But the one thing that I really didn't like, that I was really disappointed in, I hate the fact that we got Joker already. It's the first fucking issue, and already we had to see Joker. And it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek. He's this ruthless businessman who never smiles and never laughs, and so he's called the Joker, ironically or sarcastically, if you will. But I was really hoping that we could at least get one goddamn arc before we see the stupid fucking Joker. So again, it's more than a nitpick. Maybe he won't show up again for many, many issues, but it would have been nice. It really would have been nice to not see the damn Joker for a while. So that was really disappointing to me. Not enough to ruin the book, because there's a lot going on, and we know Black Mask is the villain for the first arc, and his organization and philosophy and whatever is interesting as well. But yeah, I really could have done without the Joker. So I'll have to ask Scott about that decision next time I get a chance to talk to him about this. Obviously, I'm not going to say it in such a way that's insulting, but I am curious, and maybe it all comes down to the fact that I know for Scott, the Joker is just such an integral part of who Batman is in a way. It's like the opposite of Batman. So maybe he felt like he needed the Joker already. But yeah, I could have done without that. I'm going to be curious to see what other people's reactions are as well. So anyway, give us your thoughts on Absolute Batman.
This is a straight up masterpiece. This was straight up a masterpiece. This is an absolutely brilliant issue. Every single page has got some reverence or some reference to a particular iteration, some aspect of the mythology of Batman, but we know it's in the Absolute universe, so it's always with a twist. Whether it's a younger Bruce Wayne who's 24 years old, his mother's still alive, she's a social worker. He's motivated, obviously, by his dad's death. He witnessed his dad's death at the zoo. His dad, Thomas Wayne, was a teacher, saved children's lives, including his son Bruce's at the zoo all those years ago. Flash forward many years, the first appearance of Batman on the scene. There's a fantastic scene where Batman is literally battling a group of gang terrorists called the Party Animals, and they want to attack City Hall while Mayor Jim Gordon, alongside Commissioner it's Bullock. It's Commissioner Bullock is Harvey Bullock. While they're talking to the media, the Party Animal terrorists want to break in. Batman kicks them out, won't let him. Tells a young cop, "Don't open this door, no matter what you hear. Don't open this door." Harkening back to what his father told him back in the day of at the zoo when his father died. But of course, this outcome's a lot different. The I love the whole axe thing where Batman's bat symbol on his chest comes off and it's actually an axe. I did not see that coming. I mean, I know it was spoiled in multiple reviews, but it was still pretty epic, pretty awesome to see. And and I love how even Alfred is like a deep cover agent who is called off his normal duty of being basically some sort of glorified spy abroad. He's called to Gotham to check out this party animal gang, but also this outlier who he'll come to know as Batman. And you could tell Alfred throughout the issue kind of likes this character. He doesn't want to like him, but he can't help but like this guy. And Alfred himself doesn't really like Gotham. He's got a terrible relationship with his daughter Julia. Alfred is already fairly intelligent. He's already figured out that there's a connection between Bruce Wayne and Batman. They're likely the same. The callbacks, the changes. I love the change with a young Bruce Wayne. He's got a group of high school. He's got friends that he grew up with. Young Eddie, Edward Nigma, Harvey, Ozzy, Oswald Cobblepot, Selina, and Waylon. I mean, these are all normally his rogues gallery are now in this iteration in the Absolute Universe. They're his friends growing up in Crime Alley. That's pretty cool. I like that, and I think this is really this is fantastic. I can't wait to see where this goes, and yeah, and just so jam packed in here, and his relationship with his mother. You can tell he loves his mother, and Alfred immediately identifies that as Bruce Wayne's greatest weakness is his love for his mother, and who knows where that will take us. And I will disagree with you on the Joker. I think I like that take. It doesn't bother me that the Joker shows up at the end. The whole idea of him being. We know that the Joker is almost like a force like Batman is. He's the exact opposite. So while it is a little tropey, maybe that Joker now is the rich one and he doesn't really laugh, and Batman is maybe. I mean, the irony is that Batman has perhaps more of a sense of humor than the Joker does. But I think that there's more. I think that I like the potential here in terms of where it's going and how this is going to play out in this Absolute Universe. And I'm open to whatever. I'm very happy.
That's not my complaint. I don't care that the Joker's the rich one and Batman's the poor one. I could give a shit. It doesn't. That's not a complaint at all. I don't care. I think it's brilliant that he's called the Joker because he never smiles and never laughs. I like that. Don't get me wrong. I like this take on the Joker. I like that. I think it's fantastic and it's inspired and it's great. That's not my complaint. My complaint is that he fucking shows up already. It's only the first goddamn issue. That's my complaint. I don't have any complaints. Again, I like this idea of a different version of the Joker. It's a different version of Batman. Give us a different version of the Joker. I have no problem with that. My problem is the Joker is the most overused character in comics, except for Batman. It goes Batman, the most overexposed. I'll use that word. Next is Amanda Waller, next is Joker, and third is Amanda Waller. Those are the three characters that they're too much. They're in too many goddamn books. And so, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to about Absolute Superman is the fact that Jason Aaron is saying, hey, all that stuff you're used to seeing, you're not going to see any of that in the beginning. The point is to show the differences first. And yes, we'll see Lois Lane. We'll see Metropolis. We'll see Lex Luthor. We'll see all that stuff eventually. I like that. With Scott Snyder, it's like we've already gotten Gotham City. Okay, well, like I said, Gotham City more integral to Batman as a character than Metropolis as a Superman. We already got Jim Gordon, and we already got Barbara Gordon, and we already got Bullock. We already got Black Mask, a villain we're used to seeing. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine with all that. But the Joker, of all the things to not put in the first issue because he's overexposed, would be the Joker. And just bear with me on this. If you would have waited, and what if the Joker didn't show up until issue 24, let's say? How epic would that have been? How would people, because people would have been asking. We've by that time, you know who this version of the Absolute Batman is. You've gotten a chance to get to know him. You've got all this buildup, but who's the Joker? And Snyder could have been dropping hints all along. not naming him the Joker, but just, dropping. And he could have even done red herrings where, oh, does this person turn out to be the Joker? Then you could reveal his name, but who is he? He's a mystery, whatever. You could have done this slow burn so that when he does finally show up, it's like a holy shit moment. Instead, we get a little last page here. We're told who the Joker is already. Again, interesting take that it's somebody who never smiles and never laughs, but it's the first goddamn issue, and we've already the Batman villain that's most used has already shown up, has already been named. I didn't like. I just didn't. I get it. It's a personal thing. It's my thing. Maybe people out there love the Joker and they're glad he's in the first issue. Maybe I'm playing script doctor and editorializing a little bit, but I just didn't like that. I thought it was, first of all, a little bit lazy to have him show up already, but also wasted story potential. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Am I making
yeah.
any sense?
I understand your. I got that. I I wonder if it's almost, wouldn't that be something if the Joker wasn't a villain? That would be the only thing that would surprise me. But we'll have to wait and see. In Snyder I trust. This was, honestly, I'm so impressed with this first issue. I didn't think he could impress me. I thought, how can you write a new take on Batman? This actually feels different to me. I'm excited about it. The cynic in me says it can only go down from here. That's how happy I am with this. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, your worst fears won't be realized in terms of revealing the Joker too quickly, because there's so many other aspects of this storyline, even like the real masks of with Roman Sionis, the Black Mask, and how he's different and how he takes out the mob. I mean, so many little things that happen in here. Like you said, we don't have time to do a deep dive into it, but it's well worth the pickup, and it's definitely a high recommendation.
I could see the Joker not being a villain in terms of Amanda Waller wasn't a villain, until she was. She worked for
Yeah.
the government, all sanctioned, whatever. I could see the Joker. Dude, it's not so different than the recent take on Destro over in Skybound and GI Joe Energon universe, where
Right.
kind of a necessary evil. He's this arms dealer, and even the U.S. government, they're like, well, he tells him, Destro tells him straight up, yeah, well, you throw me away, or lock me up and throw away the key, but then where are you going to buy your tanks and your planes and your missiles from? A necessary evil. So yeah, this could be that could be the case with this Joker. We'll have to wait and see. I just wish that we could have waited longer to wait and see. All right, we're not going to talk about this in detail, but I do want to mention it. There is a Sandman complete Shakespeare collection from writer Neil Gaiman, with additional materials taken from the works of William Shakespeare. Maybe you guys have heard of him. Technically, he hasn't written any comics, but he's written a few things over the years. We've got Charles Vess, Brian Talbot, John Ridgway, Michael Zulli, and Steve Parkhouse credited as artists. Steve Oliff handles the colors, Todd Klein on letters. So this is a collection of a lot of different issues of Sandman that have Shakespeare. They're drawn from Shakespeare, what have you. So it was I don't want to say a trope, but it was a storytelling device, is the way that I'll put it, that Neil Gaiman went back to over and over during his Sandman run. And so for those that are curious, you can go and check out that collected edition that's out this week. All right. Up next, as far as single issues, DC versus Vampires World War V, issue number 3. Main story written by Matthew Rosenberg, Otto Schmidt on the art, Perluga Casalini on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters, and then we have the backup starring Batmite. That's written by Tyler Boss. He handles the art as well. The colors are by Miguel Muerto, and Becca Carey handles the letters. But give us your thoughts on the main story, Rocky.
I think I'm enjoying this series. Has started off the second volume of DC v Vampires, this World War V. Matthew Rosenberg is he's always a little bit hit and miss with me, but I have to say, so far, I think this is 2 issues in now, and I'm quite enjoying this. I love how this starts off. I love how Scott Free and Big Barda, how they dealt with the vampire. I mean, Scott Free is infected with the vampire virus. He's a vampire, and Big Barda I mean, she basically wants to get intimate with him, and she wants him to bite him. She actually welcomes becoming a vampire, just to do something different. I don't know if it's their new god blood or what have you, but she seems to be quite taken with the fact of becoming a vampire and being bitten by her vampiric husband scot free. So I thought that was an interesting take, and there's a number of interesting takes that Matthew Rosenberg does here. He's Rosenberg has taken the assignment of, or the freedom that is given to him by being able to do whatever the hell he wants with these heroes in this vampire like universe, and he's definitely, he knows the homework assignment, and I. He's doing some interesting things. He made Alfred a Green Lantern last issue. This issue, he takes on Wonder Woman, holds his own quite well. Of course, the battle is left sort of at a draw. Alfred has to take off and do other things, but Wonder Woman vows to have another battle with him at some point. We know that what's been going on behind the scenes here is that the heroes that are unaffected by the vampire virus, Green Arrow and Black Canary and the like, they've discovered essentially that there's the vampires are apparently growing human food. And which is very interesting, because what the hell are they growing food for? Because vampires need blood to survive. So what are they growing food for? Who's behind all this? We don't get answers to those questions, but it is an interesting question nonetheless. We got Zealot, Killer Croc, and Green Arrow. They continue to investigate a lot of the infected, a lot of the vampires, and they stumble upon a rumor that there's this miracle child that's been born, and that's supposedly supposed to help you be like the golden child or the miracle child for the vampires, and maybe harken a new age, a vampiric age, between the relations between vampires and humans. And so, again, more mystery surrounding who this child might be. In the meantime, we see, for the first time, we see Ghostmaker, who's looking for this miracle child. We know that Mr. Miracle was the one that was that was protecting this child. And because of the opening scene between Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, one can perhaps speculate that this miracle child is in fact the offspring of Big Barda and Scot-Free. Big Barda is, of course, of Apocalypse of New Gods. Maybe this is, when you mix New God blood genetics with vampire blood, maybe that's how you end up with this miracle child. That's just speculation based upon what we can see. Damien is the one who orchestrated the killing of the vampire queen, who was Batgirl flowing from the first series. Shazam, Raven, and an infected Wonder Girl go after him, and this character, or this universe's Batman, and we don't know who this identity of Batman is, ends up sort of rescuing Damien at the end. We're not sure who this is, but I guess we'll find out next issue. But a lot's taken place. I feel a buildup of momentum. This is I found myself, interestingly enough, enjoying this more than a lot of the indies I read this week. So I hope Rosenberg keeps this momentum up. This issue I quite enjoyed. I feel compelled to give a shout out to the artist Otto Schmidt. There's something about his art that it just pulls me in. Sometimes even when Otto Schmidt's art is sloppy, and it can be sloppy at times, it seems to work in this particular story because of the universe that it's in. It's a artistic style that is in keeping and is tone wise. And it works for the story, even when sometimes the proportions are a little bit wonky and the backgrounds are a little bit dark and all over the place. It just seems to work given the setting that the story takes place in. But I quite enjoyed this. I enjoyed this particular chapter. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. When I had Matthew on to talk about this and how the world of DC versus vampires is so gloomy. Maybe that might be underselling it. It's so depressing to ratchet it up a notch. And it was so fun because he talks so much about Barbara Gordon, only to she barely shows up in the first issue, and then when she does show up, she gets killed. So the political aspect of this, with sort of the infighting among the vampires of who's going to lead them and what have you, the whole idea of this this prophecy of a miracle child, which obviously has that word miracle has double meaning here. Miracle in terms of, hey, the human race at this point sort of needs a miracle to come back from the brink of extinction. but the fact that the child that it seems to be implied that could be the savior of the human race, for lack of a better term, is the child of Mr. Miracle and Barda. um, and he's the one that can bring peace, if you will, because Mr. Miracle is a vampire and Barda, is not, and their union and what have you. They're both still new gods. So how is that different? I mean, the whole idea of new gods or Amazonians or Kryptonians or whoever being able to be turned into vampires, I think, is something new. Although now that I think about it, I think wasn't there an Action Comics annual where Superman became a vampire? But that might have been a little bit of a different
Maybe.
situation. But anyway, yeah. Either way, it's a pretty fun. There's tons of action. We still have the mystery of who this new Batman that's running around is, with apparently him revealing his identity to Damian Wayne on the last page, and Damian being sort of taken aback by who it is. So very curious to see who that will be. You mentioned Alfred and him fighting against Wonder Woman. That was super fun. I mean, Alfred as a character, really getting a lot more agency. I feel almost like so many creators feel the way that we do about Alfred. Like we really miss him in the main DCU.
Yeah.
Ever since Didio said, "Yeah, Tom King, you're going to do a fake out of Alfred being killed." Nah, just kill the real one. Um, and so, specifically, I'm thinking of the Deceased series from Tom Taylor, where
Yeah.
Alfred had a big role and was a hero. And then we just talked about Absolute Batman with Alfred as our point of view character and being a very capable secret agent, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect as well. And now here we have him as a Green Lantern, the vampiric version of Wonder Woman, sort of underestimating him and him really stepping up and getting a cool line. She mentioned him being a servant, whatever, doesn't really know what it means to be a hero. And his response of her not understanding what it means to sacrifice or to serve, and him having helped those heroes over the years in so many different ways, really set him up in such a way that he's learned the lessons, if you will. He knows exactly what it means to be a hero, and it seems to be something that she doesn't really understand. And I just thought that was fantastic, like the dialogue from Matthew Rosenberg. Um, Again, like the implying that, hey, the reason that Bruce Wayne was such a fantastic hero is a lot to do with the way Alfred raised him, because the formative years were because of Alfred. And I get it. He went and traveled the world and learned the skills or what have you. But in terms of like values and that sort of thing, that's Alfred. So despite Wonder Woman not seeing him as a hero, he clearly is. And again, we've seen that play out with various versions of Alfred over the years. So the backup story, the Batmite story, as I mentioned, it's fun, but ultimately, I don't know how necessary it is. We talked last issue about how Batmite shows up in this version of the DCU where Batman is dead and is looking for a hero to emulate, as these fifth dimensional imps tend to do. And he picks Geoforce, and in this issue, Geoforce, to his credit, does sacrifice himself. So it's not like he dies for no reason. But Geoforce is not exactly the known as being this great hero. So it was fun to have Batmite transition to Geomite and sort of follow him. And then when Geoforce dies, he's kind of like, well, who should I become? And there's all these interesting visuals from Tyler Boss. And yeah, it's fun, but at the end of the day, it's not something, you can see it there if you watch this on YouTube, all the different versions of Batmite, whether it be Blue Beetle or Vigilante Mite or whoever. But ultimately, this is not something I'm going to remember long term, because it just doesn't really have much impact or consequence. So yeah, ultimately, much like like Rocky was saying about the Action Comics backup, I'd rather have my comic cost less and not have the extra pages, to be honest. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I'm
any thoughts on the backup?
Yeah, just to add that I mean, it's a Batmite story, and it's funny. It puts a smile on your face, I guess. But is it really necessary? It just seems like sort of superfluous, and it's such a divergent. I mean, I guess it has to sort of do with vampires, but it's such a different tone and a different just a different shift of kind of story that it's sort of it's a little bit jarring. It's still jarring going from the darker tone and serious tone of the main story to the backup. It's just a really odd choice, and we saw that they did the same thing with his Joker, the man who stopped laughing thing too with the backups. It didn't work, and I'm surprised they're doing it again here. I really am. It's a mistake, but I'm not going to let it detract me. I'm buying the physical copies of this one. The Elseworld Tales of DC. I think overall DC's doing a pretty good job on them. And Matthew Rosenberg. I think I'm still glued to this one, and I think I will be to the end if based upon what that's just what my gut's telling me. But we shall see. But so far, I'm staying pretty positive here.
Yeah, again, I was really impressed with this particular issue. I may have enjoyed this one more than uh, any others. This may be my favorite issue of not just this particular series, but of the entirety of this sort of DC versus vampires universe. So,
Hmm.
all right, last book we're going to talk about in detail is Batman Gotham by Gaslight: The Kryptonian Age. This is issue number 5. Andy Diggle is the writer. Leandro Fernandez is the artist. Matt Hollingsworth on colors. Simon Boland handles the letters. Um, no backup in this one, which is interesting because the Kent backup actually was pretty cool, and it was Tom Taylor was writing it, who did the original. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Dark Knights of Steel is what I'm thinking of. So yeah, I don't think there's been
Hmm.
backups in this. Um,
Uh,
but anyway, in this particular issue, we show up to Smallville for the first time. We meet the sheriff, who is clearly Superman, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. But this just felt like such a huge chunk of story for 30 pages or whatever it is. And that's the thing that I continually am impressed with what we're getting from Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez. Um, the first Gotham by Gaslight, Brian Augustyn, Mike Mignola. It's classic. It's one of the first Elseworlds tale, if not the first. But it's really focused on Batman. And from the beginning, what we've seen with the story that Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez are crafting is this is so much more than that. From seeing Wonder Woman, as a different version, to we had Victor Stone, who people know as Cyborg, show up last issue. We see sort of his origin to becoming Cyborg in this issue. We find out that the guy that was in the little cage contraption, whatever, that Lex Luthor um, showed Victor Stone last issue. We find out that's Jay Garrick, that he's been struck by some sort of lightning energy. John Constantine shows up in this issue. We've already seen Alan Scott, who's sort of a huckster, a snake oil salesman, um, get the Green Lantern ring, get the Starheart ring. Although it maybe has more links to Krypton than the Starheart or any sort of Green Lantern, we don't know. But this is clearly expanding so much into the greater DCU in this same time period, in this same sort of steampunk type aesthetic. It's just really fantastic. And so to have Superman show up here while Lois Lane and Jimmy are in Smallville, and him pretend not to have any powers, although he clearly does, is just really fantastic. It's such a great take. And I literally love this series because I can't wait to see who's going to show up next as a different version. We're just talking about how great Absolute Batman was or is, and how much I'm looking forward to Absolute Superman from Jason Aaron. It's sort of already here in this Batman Gotham by Gaslight Kryptonian Age, and it seems like, I'm just speculating, it seems like these heroes, Batman in particular, may be the one that brings them all together. But these heroes are their storylines are sort of coalescing to where they're going to come together and perhaps form some sort of Justice League. What we haven't seen is a ton of villains yet. I mean, obviously we've had Lex Luthor show up. We know the League of Shadows is around. But I like that we haven't had, again, there's no Joker. As long as there's no Joker, I guess I'll be happy.
He'll show up
But
next issue just to piss you off.
you know what? I actually would be more okay with it again, because this is clearly a world where these heroes have been around for a while. Batman, because this is the second story. This is the sequel to Gotham by Gaslight. So things are a little more established in this world. As opposed to the other, the Absolute universe. My complaint is we're at the very beginning. We're at the very beginning of the story, and the Joker's already showed up. So yeah, I don't necessarily mind. And I think even if the Joker does show up, he probably won't be the Joker yet, because like when Victor Stone showed up, he's not Cyborg yet. We're seeing the beginnings of it. Yes, Alan Scott has showed up, but he's not Green Lantern yet. Even though he got the ring last issue. In this issue, he's in Smallville going back to his huckster ways, and Lois Lane calls him out on it. So, yeah, this is a very, very much a different take, but a fun take, and the art's fantastic. The color work is great. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying Gotham by Gaslight, like way more. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Gotham by Gaslight, again, because it's more Batman, and honestly, I remember the feel of the story and that it's Mignola art, but I couldn't sit here and tell you anything that happens in that book, even though I've read it multiple times. I couldn't tell you who the villain is. I couldn't tell you what the story beats are. Even though I've read it multiple times, it's probably been, I don't know, maybe 20 years since I've read it. So yeah, that just tells me that it wasn't that memorable, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
But I feel so for that reason, I wasn't necessarily thinking that this was going to be something that I really enjoyed. So it's been a bit of a pleasant surprise. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have to say that, as much as I love the beginnings of the Absolute universe with what we just reviewed, Absolute Batman, I'm looking forward to Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson, Jason Aaron Superman. Absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely, I'm all in. But I got to say that if it ends up being disappointing, that's okay, because if these Elseworld tales, the DCV vampires, the Gotham by Gaslight, I really like these universes. I really like the Dark Knights of Steel. I really, really like the different iterations of these heroes that are familiar, but yet different with just different settings. I really like this. This is very well done. I also don't remember much about the original Gotham by Gaslight. I think he took on Jack the Ripper. I think that was the central conceit of that original story.
That's
I think
right.
it was Jack the Ripper, which was kind of cool, and that's all you needed to know. But just the way that this is crafted here, Andy Diggle's done such a good job. I got to tell you, I think this is only a 6-issue series, and there's no way this is going to wrap up in one issue. But you know what? This is setting a status quo in this new world, this 19th century world with all these vibrant characters. I think there's only one character you missed, and that was Phantom Stranger shows up. You said Constantine, he interacts with Phantom Stranger. That's the only one you missed. I think you got all the rest. Well, there's actually Deadshot too, and what have you. But I got to say something about the Superman showing up, Clark Kent, there's the sheriff of this town. So many questions, clearly the result of this, what they're calling the Carrington event, where this alien craft of some kind landed in 1860 in Kansas. We know only because we're the readers and we know the central conceit of this story that likely that's what brought Superman, Kal-El, this sheriff down to Earth. Does the sheriff even know his origins? Clearly the sheriff knows what his powers are. He has heat vision. He very clearly is deliberately pretending to be a polite sort of quasi, gentleman who accidentally always seems to be really lucky in defeating bad guys and bad gunfighters that come to town. He's got that going for him. Lois Lane already kind of sees through him, and already you can see how it kind of works. You can also see how the Carrington event was one of the formative events in Lex Luthor's origins as well. That where he was a young scientist and he was studying the sun and he saw a solar flare and he saw the Carrington event, and that got him on his journey that ultimately led to one of the kids that was helping him, this Jay Garrick, ended up getting hit with lightning and likely accessed what I'm assuming is some kind of speed force, which we're going to hear more of as the stories progress. And all of these things, all of these storylines, these individual characters are coalescing. We haven't even seen one characters that we saw earlier issues. We haven't seen Wonder Woman this issue yet. There's Adam Strange. There's so much. All of this coming together. This is probably one I gotta say in terms of a new universe forming. This I really like. I hope this is more than 6 issues. I hope this, if this is only 6 issues, I hope this. I hope people are buying this. I'd like to see more of this particular universe moving forward. And please let Andy Diggle continue to do what he's doing, because he's doing a fantastic job. And I would be remiss if I didn't. My apologies to the artist, Leandro Fernandez. Fantastic job. Matt Hollingsworth as well. Really great creative team.
Yeah, 6 issues, and the solicit for the next issue says that it all comes together, and the heroes come together and save the day. Not even sure what they need to save the day from at this point. So Luther must really get something going on. And even though, and again, I'm paraphrasing the solicit. Even though, the immediate danger may be resolved, and it's the end of the series, that the age of justice has only begun. So yeah, I mean, I'd love this to be an ongoing, assuming that Diggle has the ideas and can keep it going. So anyway, as far as collections go this week, there are a few of them from DC. We've got Batman the Cult Deluxe Edition hardcover. Very, very famous story, written by Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson. Fantastic art. I think it was originally 4 issues, in a prestige format. All 4 are collected in a hardcover edition. So if that's your jam, if you want to check out Bernie Wrightson's incredible art, check that out. Also, we've got Elseworlds Batman Volume 2 trade paperback, which, again, probably the character that has the most Elseworld story is Batman. So this is collecting Batman Dracula, Red Rain, Batman Bloodstorm, Batman Crimson Mist. So you've got various writers, various artists. If that's your thing, go ahead and check it out. It's 288 pages, $25. And then the last book that has a collection this week is Superman 78, the Metal Curtain trade paperback, which is written by Robert Venditti, Gavin Goodry on art. Collects all 6 issues of Superman 78, the Metal Curtain, numbers, like I said, numbers 1 through 6, the whole series. And that's basically stories set in the Richard Donner Superman universe. So based on the Christopher Reeve version of Superman from the films. So if that's your jam, go ahead and check it out. All right. Book of the week, Rocky. Tough choice this week. Easy choice.
I really enjoyed this week, but there's one that I really, really enjoyed. Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age #5. Really enjoyed it, but it might seem a little bit cliche, but I have to go with I've got to go with Batman, Absolute Batman, and I apologize, I might not be able to find it. Oh, I found it here. Yes, there you go. Yeah, I have to go with Absolute Batman. Scott Snyder, Nick Dracota's art, Frank Martin. They hit it out of the park. I won't repeat myself. You have to buy this. If you're a DC fan, you have to pick this up. And even if you're not a Batman fan, well, then pick this up, because maybe this won't feel like the Batman that you're used to not liking. This is a different version of Batman, and I think a more cool version of Batman. And boy, man, what he does with his cape and the axe and this, it's awesome. It's awesome. You got to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of people's book of the week, actually. So no surprise. Although I that's what I expected you to pick. But then when you mentioned Gotham by Gaslight, I was like, oh, maybe you decided to pivot away from it. This was a really strong week. Again, we didn't get a ton of books this week, but everything we got was really, really good. Batman Full Moon was the only one, and again, that's just a personal thing for me. It felt a little derivative and a little cliche, and the art was only okay. But it still, I think, does what it set out to do, which is give you a creepy Batman werewolf story. So on that, from that level, it was really successful. Action Comics, action packed, feels classic. Mark Waid, just great. Batman and Robin off to an interesting start from PKJ. Obviously, loved the Green Lantern Civil Core special. Um, loved what Jeremy Adams is doing with Green Lantern. Again, it just so great to see Kilowog back and Mogo. Absolute Batman, you mentioned my favorite issue of DC versus Vampires, ever in the whole franchise, and Gotham by Gaslight was fantastic as well. So I have no idea. Like throw a dart. Like everything was good this week. Everything was so fantastic. If I could only, God, if I could only reread one, maybe that's how I'll choose to decide. God, do I have to pick?
You have to pick one.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like in terms of importance, Absolute Batman obviously is the one. But you've already picked that, and I have my issue with it. Which if you get however many pages it is, right? Like say it's 20 pages, you get 19 pages that are like the absolute best comic storytelling you can do, and then you get one page that I don't like because they introduced the Joker already. I can't discount the quality of the book that came, the rest of the book that came before it. But all right, put on the spot. I'm gonna go with Green Lantern Civil Core Special. You know what? No, I'm not. I take that back. I'm gonna go with Batman Gotham by Gaslight. With apologies to Jeremy Adams. Yeah, it's neck and neck. Either one of those I could go with and probably be happy. But I'm gonna go. The reason I'm gonna go with Batman Gotham by Gaslight: The Kryptonian Age is because there's only one issue left, and I'm not going to get as many chances to give it a shout out. Whereas Jeremy Adams' Green Lantern run is continuing, so I'll have more chances to pick that in the future. But I mean, honestly, you can't go wrong with any of the books this week. They're all really, really fantastic. But yeah, for the reasons I said when I was talking about Gotham by Gaslight, how much it surprised me and what have you, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna pick that. So, all right. Any last thoughts before we close it down?
Well, just that this is probably I'm trying to remember, this might be the best week where every single comic we reviewed we both really liked. I mean, no, Batman Full Moon wasn't so much yours, but I mean, I like that, and this is one where I pretty much liked every single one this week. Every single one. And that's rare. It's very rare that every week I like every DC comic that came out. I really hope this keeps up. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I was impressed this week. So that's just by maybe coincidence the way they, put out their comics. But you're right. This week was a joy to read, joy to review them with you.
Yeah, again, fantastic week, everybody. So don't forget to go over to the Comic Source channel and check out our Indie Spotlight for this week. I did get a chance to talk to Jeff Johns at LA Comic-Con. Should have him and some of the other creators from Ghost Machine on as well. They're really firing on all cylinders over there on independent books. But there's some great independent books this week as well. So join us over there. Don't forget to be sure you're subscribing. If you're listening to us audio only on the podcast, Comic Source podcast feed, which you can find on every podcast platform, every podcast app. Just do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. But if you're checking us out that way, don't forget to head over to YouTube. Check out Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom! Where you can see the graphics, the books we're talking about, the beautiful art, all of that. When you're there, you know what to do. Subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave some comments below. Let us know what you thought of this week. I'm really curious. I especially want to know what people think about the Joker showing up already in Absolute Batman #1. Give us your thoughts on that. But while you're there, you can check out past episodes and other content Rocky is putting out as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the Comic Source YouTube channel where we do our Indie Spotlight every week and all the other Comic Source content comes out. Be sure you're subscribed over there so you don't miss the recap of LA Comic-Con, all the upcoming content from New York Comic-Con. If you're going to be there, be sure you're following the Comic Source on social media. If you want to know where I am, come say hi. I think I still have some Comic Source lanyards left, so if you'd like one, track me down. I'll probably have some on me. And then, yeah, that's going to do it, everybody. Appreciate the support as always. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.